Last week, we learned that our sin, our logs, cloud the way we see ourselves. But Jesus' teaching in Matthew 7 also shows that our sin impacts the way we see others. Too often, our sin causes us to fall into the trap of judgment and the trap of being offended. Consider this story and see if you can relate. Early in the morning, Jesus was at the temple. A crowd soon gathered, and he sat down and taught them. As he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. "Teacher," they said to Jesus, "this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, "All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus said, "Neither do I. Go and sin no more." Who are you in the story? Are you the woman? Have you been caught in the midst of your sin, what was once private now made public? Or are you the accusers? Have you been so blinded by your own sin that you become offended by the sin of others and seek judgment? The answer is probably both. We have all experienced the fallout of someone else being offended, and we have all acted hastily out of our own offense. But there is a third option. We can be like Jesus. You see, when we recognize that we have sin in our lives and allow Jesus to remove it, we start to see people the way that God does. We start to recognize them by the same names given to us by Jesus. Certainly, we shouldn't gloss over someone else's sin. Jesus didn't do that. Instead, our motivation needs to come from a place of compassion and a desire to encourage others to hand their battles over to Jesus. That is the true meaning of Jesus' teaching on the logs and the speck. Only when we have first dealt with our logs can we begin to help others with their own sin. And what's more, once we allow Jesus to free us from the sin of judgment and being easily offended, we may find that what we first thought was a speck in someone's eye wasn't actually there at all. The bottom line is this: if we want to win the war in our minds, if we want to avoid the trap of offense and judgment, we need to stop seeing others as enemies or competitors in life and start viewing them as allies who, just like us, are worthy of being redeemed.